Thanks to a budget-designed smart car platform, Citroen has been able to position this 4th generation C3 Supermini firmly at the affordable end of the small hatch segment. You'll need to like the squarical looks and soft ride, but if you do, it's difficult to ignore this French contender.
With this 4th generation C3 Supermini, Citroen aims to reset segment value expectations. Here, we're going to take a closer look. The battle's on to fill the void in the Supermini market left by the end of production of this segment's erstwhile bestseller, Ford's Fiesta. The Stellantis Group has 3 runners in this particular race. Now 2 are recently revised, the Fiesta's traditional arch rival and segment sales leader, Vauxhall's Corsa, and the modern style icon, which is Peugeot's 208. The Stellantis dark horse, though, could be the car we look at here, Citroen's 4th generation C3. It is considerably cheaper than its cousins, and unlike them, it gets an all-new smart car Stellantis platform, which the group is earmarking for models that it wants to price low enough to compete with the budget brands. Sure enough, the cost competition here is less Corsa and 208 and more Suzuki Swift and Dacia Sandero. Unlike those 2 models, though, you can also have this C3 in full electric form and as a proper hybrid, as well as in conventional combustion guise. Sounds an interesting proposition, doesn't it? You can find out more about this kind of car by downloading the Car and Driving app, and if your interest is specifically in this C3, then you'll need to stay with us for the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. It's telling that in a quarter of a century of history, the C3 model line has never offered any sort of even mildly sporty model. It's just never been that kind of car, and it still isn't now. You could argue, as we often have, that the comfort-orientated approach that this little Citroen has always pursued instead is the most appropriate one for a small hatch, which is, after all, going to spend almost all its life on the pockmarked streets of suburbia, which is fine, provided things don't fall to pieces as soon as you leave the city limits. The soft ride is very evident from the moment that you set off, even more so with this 4th generation model, because its comfort suspension features the advanced comfort hydraulic bump stops we've seen added to the damping system of larger Citroen hatches. The idea of these is to take the edge off the reverberations from sharper potholes and speed humps. Now, to some extent they do, but if you come expecting to be cruising around town on some sort of cloud, then I'm afraid you are going to be sorely disappointed. The advanced comfort setup doesn't dispel road shocks, it's only there to minimise them, and it struggles a bit even with that if you happen to be driving the much heavier E-C3 EV version we're trying here, which weighs in at 1,483 kilos and has to lug around the best part of half a tonne more than its combustion counterparts do. Still, what's served up here is pretty much the best that we can expect in terms of ride compliance from a small car these days. It makes most competitors feel crude, but from a brand who once brought us one of the best riding compact cars ever, the innovative Citroen GS of the 70s, with its cushioning hydropneumatic suspension, you might have hoped for something, well, rather more. Automotive technology, you see, doesn't always go forward. Sometimes it also slips back. Compact Stellantis Group Superminis these days use either the conglomerate's CMA small car chassis, as does the Vauxhall Corsa and the Peugeot 208, or the organisation's more budget-orientated smart car platform, which is what features here and is also shared by the Fiat Grande Panda and the Vauxhall Frontera. Now, unlike the Fiat and the Vauxhall, though, this C3 can be had in really simply engineered form with an unelectrified petrol power plant and manual transmission. The base 1.2 litre turbo 100 3-cylinder C3 variant in question might well be the pick of the range, with most of what you need and not much of what you don't. 62 miles an hour is dispatched in 10.6 seconds, and that's en route to 99 mph. Citroen, of course, hopes that you'll spend a bit more than that and get some kind of electrified C3, either the hybrid model, which uses a heavily modified 110 horsepower version of the 3-cylinder engine, aided by a little 28 horsepower electric motor, which is built into the casing of the car's integrated 6-speed dual clutch auto gearbox, or the full EV EC3 variant we're trying here. Whichever of these two models you're first drawn to, and there is a strong case to be made for either one of them, we do also encourage you to try the other one as well. The hybrid performance figures are virtually the same as those for the unelectrified version, but its major attribute is that in town it can operate for up to 50% of the time on battery power alone. During deceleration in the hybrid, the petrol engine stops and the e-motor acts as a generator to recharge the hybrid system's 48-volt battery. The battery also stores the energy that's recuperated by the regenerative braking system. All of which might make you think twice about committing to the limited range of an EV, which in the case of this EC3 is pegged theoretically at 199 miles from its 44 kilowatt-hour battery. Still, if it is an EV that you have to have, this is one of the better budget ones. It doesn't feel very quick for a small EV, but the little 113 HP motor puts all the power through the front wheels that you really need. 62 miles an hour takes 10.4 seconds en route to 82 mph top speed. As we've already suggested, there's nothing about this car that really makes you want to drive it quickly anyway, despite its shrunken little Peugeot iCockpit style steering wheel. Certainly not the way that it goes around corners at speed, where the nose sometimes feels rather reluctant to turn in and body roll is very evident. Having said that though, there is plenty of grip and traction on offer if you really need it. Simplicity is the key with this EC3, perhaps too much simplicity actually, because there's no eco driving mode and there's no way of boosting the 199 mile range by altering brake regeneration, not even a B gear selector setting. There is a C mode, but actually that does the opposite. The letter stands for coasting, which you'd select for smoother highway use to reduce regenerative braking, of course. The other thing that you might be reaching for on the highway is this little button by your right knee to turn off the particularly irritating speed limit sound. Now, we do understand why you have to have this. What we don't understand though is why it has to sound like a cheap microwave oven. One final point: don't be tempted to put those SUV-like looks to the test over bumpy trails. There is actually just 163 millimeters of ground clearance. Those familiar with the C3 model line will immediately notice that this time around, curvy cuteness has been swapped for a boxier, crossover-inspired, more mature vibe. This may be what the market wants, but it potentially makes this model a much less distinctive and individual proposition. To try to preserve some of that, there are styling cues from the wacky Ollie concept car, an unusual bluff nose section with the brand's latest badge, and colour clip inserts on either side of the car, which allow owners to add swappable, contrast-coloured accents. Previous C3 models have been a bit smaller than the class norm. An 80mm length increase for this 4th generation design does move this Citroen back a little more into line with rivals, but it is still shorter than its similarly engined Stellantis Group supermini cousins. The compact 4015mm body length makes it 50mm shorter than a Peugeot 208 and 55mm shorter than a Vauxhall Corsa. We mentioned the SUV vibe, hence the chevroned wheel arch cladding and these standard roof rails here, and the included colour clips, which feature in either red, yellow, or as in this case, in white on the D-pillars. You'll be pleased to find that these rather nice Atacamite diamond cut bitone 17-inch alloy wheels come as standard too, as does the contrast coloured roof offered in either black or this white finish. More colour clips feature at the front in the large corner cutouts. For some reason, Citroen feels the need to fit a grey skid plate style lower finisher on the bottom part of the bumper there. The LED headlights have a distinctive three-part illuminating signature. There's a much more upright windscreen than the previous generation model had, and a short, high and horizontal bonnet flows down into the nose section with brand chevrons as its theme, not only on the oval centre badge, but also on the black strip it sits on. The rear treatment's neat too, with this black branded strip emphasising the 6mm increase in width. There's a neat roof spoiler, a bee-sting style aerial, a dinky rear wiper and more skid plate style lower bumper trimming. As at the front, there's a 3-level lighting signature with 1 vertical and 2 horizontal lenses, which is supposed to look like blades. You only get these brighter LED tail lights with this top spec trim level though. Right, time to take a look inside, where it's nothing like any Citroen interior you've ever seen before. There are little red tabs stitched into the door handles, exhorting you to have fun and be cool. And in its own budget-minded, friendly way, this cabin here is quite cool. The brand calls it its C-Zen Lounge, which turns out to mean a 2-level fascia with the technical elements above there and a cosy fabric-wrapped sofa design style section below. There's a pleasing selection of light and dark finishing, smart fabric fascia trimming and a dinky little oval steering wheel, which, as with its Peugeot cousin's iCockpit dashboard design, requires you to look at instruments over its rim rather than through its spokes. Now in this case though, those instruments don't sit in a conventional binnacle. Instead they sit in a narrow letterbox-like strip housing a small selection of digital readouts, and this is a layout that works really well. There's also lots else to like, primarily the well-padded advanced comfort seats with a smart two-tone design and extra foam support. Easily the best chairs you'll find in the supermini segment. And there's such a clever, simple touch, light grey finishing for the inside of the door bins so you can more easily see their contents. The iPad-style central screen is just the right size, as are the strange vertical vents which bookend either corners of the dashboard. Build quality from the Slovakian factory seems okay, and it's nice, even in this EV version, to have a proper key that goes into a proper key slot so it doesn't end up rattling around in a cubby somewhere as you drive. And there are some branded touches if you look for them, like the since 1919 heritage models which are inscribed onto the inner side edge of the glove box lid. Now, we mentioned this narrow instrument strip, which Citroen calls a head-up display. Doesn't look like that at first glance, but sure enough, if you place a little ticket below the readout, that reveals there is actually projection going on here. This display, which might remind older folk of a 90s Renault Espace, prioritises the digital speedo of course, but it can also show an eco driving meter, ambient temperature, and on this EV version, battery charge and range. It shows prevailing speed limits too, advertising them by one of the most annoying speed limit beeps that you'll come across. Fortunately though, there's a button by your right knee to quickly turn that feature off. As for the central infotainment screen, well, the good news is that at last Citroen has learned not to overburden this with climate controls. These are separated out lower down a centre stack. This monitor is 10.25 inches in size, and it turns out to be slightly more user-friendly than the usual Stellantis widget design item that you'll find on a Corsa or a 208. Volume is down on the left side, and there are shortcuts for radio, phone, nav and settings along the right frame. Swipe left for wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's a reasonable voice control system, and with this plusher trim level we have here, you get 3D navigation. Not everything's great, of course. The piano black center console trimming will smear and scratch almost immediately. The glove box is severely compromised in size by the fuse box right next to it. Citroen's forgotten to put ticket clips in the sun visors there, and rearward visibility is restricted by huge wide rear D-pillars. Plus, even on this top spec model, there are lots of blanked off switches by your right knee for, well, who knows what. You get a reasonable amount of cabin practicality though, including a deep lidded box between the seats here, twin cup holders ahead of the gear selection, and a cubby just below the handbrake switch with a USB-C port nearby. Another USB-C port lies to the left of the central screen, and this plush version also gives you a wireless charging mat below the climate controls. This feels a significantly bigger car than the old Mark III C3 model, so time to see what the lengthier 2.54 metre wheelbase serves up in the back. These colour-coded D-pillar panels look as if they might be door catchers, but a conventional handle features instead. Once inside, a little disappointingly, rear seat legroom isn't really very much better than it was in the previous generation design. Still, it is vastly better than something like, well, for example, a Renault 5, and a 6-foot passenger could just about sit behind a front seat occupant of the same stature, and that's helped by the fact that you can push your knees well into these squashy seat backs. The boxy silhouette's extra 5 inches of roof height does mean useful improvements in headroom, and that would feel even better if the ceiling didn't dip just over your head there. It's a pleasant surprise to find that Citroen has extended its advanced comfort seat design to these rear pews, so they get the same extra padding and smart design as those in the front. But as with other small Stellantis superminis, the headrests are of the sort that dig uncomfortably into your shoulders and neck until you raise them. Despite the low central tunnel, you wouldn't want to have to try to cram a middle-seated occupant in here, but this is a supermini, so you wouldn't expect to have to do that. Trendy red tabs feature again on the doors. These ones rather irritatingly exhort you to feel good and to be happy. You wouldn't expect to find grab handles, they've been forgotten, but the door bins, which are rather more like bottle holders actually, have helpful greyed out interiors like those out front. The seat backs have big lower pockets and small upper ones, and Citroen also provides twin USB-C ports, and rather pointlessly in the current age, a 12-volt socket too. At least there are 3 belts across the back here. Some small cheap cars don't offer those. We'll finish as usual with a look out back. Lift the light hatch and you'll find there's 310 litres of trunk capacity. Hardly amazing by class standards, but it's probably all you need. 5 carry-on suitcases will fit. And more of an issue is the fact that you have to lug everything over this high lip here, and that in this EV version at least, there's no extra space beneath the boot floor. Now this is a problem in this EC3 because it means that the charging lead takes up space in and constantly slides around on the boot floor. Small recesses on either corner might help you to get awkward items like pushchairs in. There is also a bag hook on the right, a dim light on the left, and 4 floor tie downs. One day, a supermini maker might bring us a car with a conveniently split seat back, which allows you to push long items in between 2 rear-seated folk, but that day hasn't come yet. So there's just the usual 60-40 split. Fold everything flat, and there is a step in the floor of the extended load bay, which in this configuration offers up a modest 1,188 litres of space. As we filmed in summer 2025, the starting price for a C3 was pitched at £18,805 for the base turbo 100 horsepower combustion version, or from £20,615 upwards for the hybrid. Those figures assume base plus trim. The hybrid also comes with Plusher Max trim for £1,600 more. As we filmed in summer 2025, this full electric EC3 was priced from £22,095 in base plus trim, or at £23,795 for plusher max. But with the government's electric car grant just introduced at the time of this test, you can take £1,500 off those prices. If the cabin of the C3 Supermini isn't quite large enough, bear in mind that Citroen also offers all the same engineering in a small SUV model, the C3 Aircross, which in some of its forms can seat up to 7. As we filmed in summer 2025, C3 Aircross prices were starting from £21,105 in combustion form. The E-C3 Aircross, though, is priced much closer to its E-C3 hatch counterpart from £23,095 as we filmed. Sticking with this Supermini body shape, it's also worth mentioning that this EC3 is also available as a van, offered only with mid-range plus trim, and as we filmed, it was priced at around £20,000 after plug-in van grant deductions. Now, because this C3 sits on a cheaper to make smart car platform, which is different from the chassis used by its two close Stellantis Group cousins, those are the Vauxhall Corsa and the Peugeot 208, of course, it's able to undercut equivalently engined versions of those cars on price. You don't see that so much if you're comparing with combustion versions. A C3 undercuts a petrol Corsa or 208 by £1,200 to £1,500. But if you matched spec to this Citroen, the difference would be far, far greater. Where you really see the value difference, though, to Vauxhall and Peugeot with this Citroen is if you're shopping for an EV. This EC3 undercuts an electric Corsa by around £5,000 and an E208 by around £8,000. Arguably a closer match to this Citroen with more comparable smart car engineering is provided by another charismatic Stellantis Group small car, Fiat's Grande Panda. Now, this only comes in either hybrid or EV forms and is very tightly priced indeed. In hybrid guise, it's about £2,500 cheaper than a C3, and in full EV form, a Grande Panda will save you about £1,000 over an EC3. But again, once you equalise spec, you may feel that this Citroen comes out on top value-wise. As for segment alternatives outside the Stellantis Group, well, a petrol C3 is able to save you a bit on petrol segment contenders like Volkswagen's Polo and Seat's Ibiza. It will cost you much the same as a Suzuki Swift, but it is predictably priced above real budget brand contenders like the MG3 and the Dacia Sandero. If, having considered all that, you find yourself seduced by a C3 or an EC3 of some kind, then you're going to need to know more about standard specs. So let's take a closer look at that right now. In terms of equipment, you may feel that base plus spec is all you need. It comes with these Atacamite diamond cut bi-tone 17-inch alloy wheels, LED auto headlights, rear parking sensors, air conditioning, roof rails, auto wipers, cruise control and an alarm. Fashionable touches include front and side colour clips, front and rear grey skid plates, black wheel arch extensions and this trendy two-tone roof here. Inside you get advanced comfort seats trimmed in urban grey cloth. That's along with air conditioning and what Citroen calls a head-up display. Now this brings data into your line of sight. You get a 10.25-inch central infotainment touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and also Android Auto. Those are wireless smartphone mirroring systems, of course, and a 6-speaker audio system. This range-topping Max model doesn't visually look much different to the Plus version, but if you are a C3 customer who's decided to stretch up to a Max model, then you'll also get 3D navigation, automatic air conditioning, wireless smartphone charger, LED rear lights, a heated steering wheel, there's also a heated windscreen and rear parking camera too. Max trim also gets you a nicer metropolitan grey cloth upholstery with part leather effect trim. Do bear in mind that Citroen makes some of its money back via the small print. It's a bit of a cheat to charge an extra £20 for a puncture repair kit. If you're planning on charging this EC3 using a 3-phase 11 kilowatt supply, you'll have to pay more again. And only one of the 6 available colours, Monte Carlo Blue, is standard. All the others cost extra, and quite a lot extra if you don't choose the polar white shade. The body colour you choose will also dictate the colour of the contrasting roof. There's black or white, and also the colour of the contrast clips, which feature at the front and on the D pillars. There's red, yellow or white. Disappointingly, the eC3 can't be had with the option of a heat pump to preserve range in cold weather. On to safety. On all models, Citroen includes its safety pack, which includes active safety brake autonomous braking, also an active lane departure warning system. There's speed limit recognition and driver attention alert too. Plus you'll get tyre pressure monitoring, and of course there are twin front, side and curtain airbags, all linked to an e-call system. If you're prepared to forego the various electrified powertrains and opt for the base model's turbo 100 horsepower petrol unit, you can expect up to 52 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and up to 128 grams per kilometre of CO2. You may want to look at the hybrid 110e DCS6 version, which can improve those figures to 56.5 mpg and 114 grams per kilometre of CO2. Benefit in kind taxation for the hybrid is rated at 28%, compare against 31% for the Turbo 100 version. Either way, it's substantially above the 3% rate that you'd pay for an equivalent EV. This C3's hybrid petrol engine has been optimised for efficiency, and it operates in the Miller combustion cycle. This thermodynamic cycle is enabled by the variable geometry turbocharger, which enhances performance at low RPM and variable valve timing. A belt-driven starter combines with the e-motor to start the petrol engine from cold. The belt starter also restarts the engine quickly and seamlessly while you're driving. If you really want efficiency in a C3 though, then you'll need the eC3 full electric variant. The 44 kilowatt hour battery is supposed to be able to take you up to 199 miles between charges. There is no heat pump available though to preserve range in cold weather, and not even as an option. Citroen claims that the eC3 is capable of rapid charging at rates of up to 100 kilowatts. That's a very modest speed, which allows for a 20 to 80% charge in 26 minutes. At home, you'll be able to 20 to 80% charge from a 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box in just 4 hours 10 minutes. If your property has a three-phase supply, you'll be able to use the optional 11 kilowatt charge system, in which case the 20 to 80% charging time will be just under 3 hours. At the other extreme though, using a domestic socket for a full recharge would need a yawning 21 hours and 54 minutes. What else? Well, like all EVs, this eC3 has a low benefit in kind tax rating set at 3% for the 2025 tax year. Compare that to 28% for the hybrid and 31% for the turbo 100 horsepower combustion C3 variant. All versions of this model are covered by the brand's usual unremarkable 3-year 60,000 mile warranty. Plus, with the eC3, the battery has its own 8-year warranty. You might not be immediately drawn to the squarical looks of this 4th generation C3, and its unusual dashboard is something of an acquired taste, but all may well be forgiven when you check out the budget value pricing. With this little Citroen, Stellantis seems at last to have worked out how to make a supermini for sensible money, and that is a very welcome development. Like its predecessor, the ride is set up to be softer than the supermini norm, and for us that's welcome too, given the potholed urban environment in which a typical C3 will operate. Plus it's very decently equipped for the money, and it's quite customizable as well. Yes, there are more polished contenders in the segment, but they cost a lot more. Are they worth more though? Well, after a look at this very Gallic offering, you might wonder.